feel like I need a bit of set design. Hope you can see that. Can you see that? Yeah, you can see that. Okay. It's me. It's been a year. I don't care. I just want to record something. I need to make something, you know what I mean? I've got a couple of apologies to make. Number one is, this is very bland because it's my pajamas. So I'd normally be wearing a better outfit. Number two, my voice isn't great because whenever I seem to record, the fabric of my throat seems to slowly disintegrate and die. And number three, my mic is currently undergoing surgery, which means the port broke and I tried to pull it out with tweezers, not knowing or thinking that it was soldered to a motherboard, which of course led me to buy a new port, but right now it's in waiting to be fixed. It's also bedtime, so I'm being quiet. What do you think? I'm actually not a fan of the fact that it's bedtime because a lot of my fun factor, let's say, is being really loud and silly, but I can't do that right now. And I'm really far away. But anyway, I'm here to talk about the Strokes. I just want to be one of the Strokes. Now, look at the mess you made me make. Hitchhiking with a monogram suitcase, miles away from any half-useful imaginary highway. I've recently taken up being a Strokes fan, which is something I've not been hesitant to do, but I've not wanted to throw myself into it or anything because I never saw them as like hugely my thing, just different aspects. So I listened to the new Abnormal a decent few years ago and I liked different bits of it, and I also really liked The Adults Are Talking like everyone else, but I never really got into it. In fact, my main contact with Julian Casablancas has been through his other band, The Voids, because I've actually listened to them more because I used to love this one song they have called Where Eagles Dare.
Hi, it's me, Dave Edit, and I'd like to say that's not the name of the song. Where Eagles Dare is a film that came out in the 60s about spies infiltrating Nazi Germany, and it's sick. Go give it a watch. It's actually called Where No Eagles Fly.
That's on the GTA radio that Julian Casablancas runs, you know, the one that's like... And also they had that song with Daft Punk, the bonus one off Random Access Memories. But the main reason I'm invested in The Voids is because their latest album was meant to be so bad that I just couldn't resist taking a look. But one of the main reasons it was bad wasn't actually to do with the music. It was the fact that the album cover is AI, which is pretty much, in my books, one of the biggest bad things you can do, especially within music. And it just takes away any aura that Julian had, because he's now endorsing AI, which is just the worst thing on the planet, essentially, unless it's medically purposed stuff. And I just, you know, it's so sad. It's so sad. But, you know, I listened to the album and there was one or two tracks that I liked. There's one that basically samples The Adults Are Talking and is like a parallel universe version of it that's kind of a bit bleaker, but it's pretty good. And there's a song that's very, very New Orderish, and I love New Order. But yeah, whenever I listen to that, I listen to it with the single cover because I don't want that. I don't want that slop. Your slop. Yeah, slop bores me. Like, I remember watching the Zane Lowe interview with Julian about that album, and he just didn't give a shit.
I think our idea was that we were just gonna do singles for a while and have a couple of songs in the tank and record it, and if ever it was time to kind of put out an album, we would. And so I guess now is that time. Phase 2.
Who decides? Is it a collective thing of everybody being like, yeah,
well,
like,
God.
Like the other two Voids albums were, they wanted to make them, they tried and everything, but that just seems like a collection of demos. Like, he really did not give a shit about it, honestly. And it kind of shows, I can't lie. But I still kind of enjoyed listening to it because I enjoyed the drama, but it didn't quite get me and Julian off on the right foot, let's say, you know, my close mate, Mr. Casa. But yeah, 2026 comes around. It's been a year and a half or so since that Voids album came out, and we have a new Strokes album on the horizon. And I think subconsciously that's pushed me to get into them because I have, by the bucket load, you know, I've just kind of delved into This Is the Strokes Spotify playlist, which is a bit of a kind of basic move, but you know, I want to kind of hear all the bangers that I don't know about. And then I've just been listening to some of the albums and all this and all that. But yeah, they're an amazing band. They're so tight. I think the word I'd use to describe them is tight. And I don't know really why I'm telling you this, because if you like the Strokes, you're already going to know all this stuff. So yeah, anyway, it kind of made me remember the good tracks from the new Abnormal that I had kind of forgotten about, and it got me onto loads of good new stuff. Shit. Sorry, my lighting right now is Google white on images, and it's just loads of white images. Anyway, but this brings me to my main point of the video, is that I'm a bit worried of where this is going, to be honest, because when they announced, what's it called again? Shit, I've forgotten what it's called. I'm not going to Google it, come on. I'm actually really glad I Googled that because I don't think it was going to come to me. Reality Awaits is the new Strokes album, and they announced it just kind of out of nowhere and threw out a single immediately. But before I get to that single, I'm fairly sure they used AI in the promo. I heard somewhere that it wasn't, but it really looks like it. And that just, you mess around with your other band doing that, it's bad enough. You're bringing it to this band that everyone listens to. Well, not everyone, but you know what I mean. No. But leaving that aside for now, I want to talk about the single, Going Shopping. The single itself isn't bad. I think it's just chilled, and that doesn't make a song bad. But my God, the auto-tune on it is unnecessary. Auto-tune is something Julian loves to do, as we know, and he does it in the Voids more, like a lot in the Voids, but it's not something that's typically used in the Strokes that much. And the overwhelming feeling that I have about it is that it is completely unnecessary, and I know I'm not the only one to think of this, because it really just makes the song worse. Because there are so many great artists that use auto-tune in a creative way as an instrument, like Julian on his other projects, Charlie, you know what I mean? Even Pink Pantheress uses a specific type of tuning in an instrumental way on a voice.
I've never sang with no tuning before, so this was really scary. I nearly didn't do this because the NPR people were like, no, you can't use anything.
But it's not the vibe. Like, it doesn't match it at all. It almost seems lazy. It's like he wanted to, it was like, oh, we need to make the song more interesting. Just slap auto-tune on my voice. It's just not, it doesn't work for me. Just a side note, I really like the single cover, and I'm glad they've done one because so many bands don't do single covers anymore, and the death of the single cover is one of the biggest tragedies in music. Free the single cover. But this song just doesn't pack a punch. Now, I'm not saying that's representing the album, but if that's going to be your first single, you'll come back after 6 years where you've had one of your biggest songs on that last album. So going on the Strokes track record, one of their biggest hits ever came on only their last album. So they want to be kind of continuing that fuel and that fire into this next one because they're on track. But instead, they've dropped this, which is like a sleepy hit. And I don't think that's bad on the album, except the auto-tune. But I don't think that's a single that you want to be dropping if you want to pull people back in. And I just think it's not getting people moving or anything, you know? I think they announced the album very close to when it's actually coming out, which is another thing I'm not always a fan of because it takes away from the era and the hype around it. Like, part of the enjoyment of an album is the singles coming out beforehand and you're all getting ready for it and you're like, we're entering this new era. And a lot of bands these days rely on that happening afterwards. But when it comes to the Strokes, I think they're just at a point where they don't really think it matters. But it does. It really impacts how it's going to be remembered and how big it's going to be. And I think announcing this album that's coming out in, maybe was it like 2 months, if that? I don't hear it, you know what I mean? All that being said, I really do love the album cover. Now, I know that doesn't necessarily matter when it comes to it, but it kind of does. I love art, I love album covers, I love talking about the designs of albums, good and bad, and I love what we're going for here. I love Western vibes, I love all of that stuff, and the Strokes are typically a band where I think their album covers reflect the vibe of the music that they are performing on it. I know that's quite an out there thing to say, but if you look at something like Angles, it's much more kind of colourful and cubic and almost technical, and that album's got some of the more like technological electronic sounds on it. And then you kind of look at the new Abnormal, and it also matches the vibes with, like, it's not got like a boring album cover, it's quite colourful, and that album has quite a lot of synthesized and stuff, but it's also quite graffiti-ish. And that album has this kind of gritty melancholy feel to it, and I think that is a vibe match, and I think that works. But unless the album like pulls together this great Western story vibe and weaves in Going Shopping at some point in the album that makes it work, I don't know if it's gonna match it.
Just another editor's side note on this, I had this thing where the kind of visuals of the album cover impact how I see the songs in my brain and how I kind of view them. So it can kind of change the vibe. And I wish I didn't have it sometimes, because some songs on albums that are quite happy and bouncy can look quite grey in my head if they have a darker album cover. It's just a weird neurodiverse thing. But that's why I'm so bothered about this, you know what I mean? And I'm not scared of like darker album covers. They're all beautiful. But I really love it when it captures the vibe. You know what I mean?
I don't know if we're in for like a great LP. I guess I'm really just talking about covers and music right now, but on an actual note, I just want to reiterate that it feels like they don't care. It feels like they've not really thought about the single. It feels like they've not really thought about the promo, and it's been 6 years, and I saw an Instagram comment saying it looks like they're giving up, and I wouldn't go as far to say that, but it doesn't look like enough to me to get everyone rallied up and excited for the Strokes' comeback. But wait, something turned the tide on this. Before I end this video, I want to end it on a good note. Something that changed the game, Coachella. Now, I've previously talked about my dislike for Julian over the past few years because of his attitude about the music he's making, but also the sodding AI. But then they did this Coachella performance and they called out the wrongdoing, the American government, awful wars, all this awful shit, and they called it out hard. And they did something that I believe is right, what so many artists and famous people refuse to even talk about. They did the right thing. And not only that, but they protested it at the second biggest festival in the world. Come on, Glastonbury. Point is, that's probably going to get them barred from Coachella. Why? Because they spoke up about the right thing in a world where speaking about the right thing gets you cooked. I also think Julian was bursting with energy on that stage, more energy than I've seen him with in years. Like the whole Pink Panther thing, yeah, no, that was funny. Like,
oh man, I'm bummed. I wanted to see Pink Panthers playing at the same time as it. The fuck, man? They fucked us!
He was with it, and people that had previously had the same issues as me said, you know, as bad as the AI was and is, this is something. I'm not saying it absolves that, but my god, that was class. And also he did that video where they do the hot takes on the subway with that fella in NYC, and I watched his hot takes. It was great. It was so based. It was full on. He wasn't messing around. The way he talked about Gaza and all the kind of issues that he discussed, it was great. You know, I don't care. Look at me, I don't care. It was peak. Okay, haters. It shows an aspect of not being afraid, and I really love that. So I think from a moral standpoint, it's great, and that's really important what they're doing. And I think that argument matters more than anything. But I do want to see some banger tracks. But you know, reality awaits. So yeah, that's about it for this. If this ever comes out, I'll be baffled. If it gets past a week, then it probably will never come out because it'll be irrelevant. But yeah, I'm hoping that this album surprises me because it will be my first Strokes album that has come out since I am now a fan. And I've been a fan for about 2.5 weeks.